Hello, my name's Bill, and we are doing the Awakening and Conscious Living podcast. And my cohort's name is Luisa, and she's going to introduce herself and tell us what our topic is for today.
Hello. Thank you for being with us today on another episode of Awakening Conscious Living. We are going to talk today about the why, what, and how of our spiritual experience. Bill and I have shared our journeys. We've talked a lot about how to live very practically a conscious life. And today we're going to talk about why it happens. We're going to demystify the mystical aspect of a spiritual experience and talk about the why, the what, and the how in ways that make sense to all of us, taking away all of that mysticism that lives around it. Bill, do you believe that spiritual experiences happen for a specific reason, for a specific purpose, or do you think they're just a byproduct of spiritual practices like meditation and prayer, if that's what people take part in?
Mm-hmm. I think anybody could have a spiritual experience at any point in time. Okay. But I would say this is that the more you start to awaken, the more you start to take your mask off, the more you start to look at what's really happening in your life, the patterns that you're operating out of. Once all that starts to happen, then I think the opportunities for mystical experiences increase. As do they happen to serve a purpose? Uh, I completely do believe that they do because I've had a bunch of spiritual experiences and but I never knew why they happened at the time.
Mm,
I most of them, some of them I still don't know why they happened. And the ones that I do think I know why they happened, I usually didn't understand for years.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think for me it has also been the same. At the time when they happen, I don't. I have an inkling usually, but the full picture is never fully developed. It is basically like this glimpse into knowing that there's a window. And it helps me feel better at the time in terms of practicality of understanding it in the 3D world. Um, but it does take time. And usually for me, the information comes through 3D experiences as to why the spiritual experience happened. 3D experiences as well as like dreams, that's a big one. And just meditation. I'll get a lot through there and the sensations in my body when something hits. You know those moments where I don't know what they're called. Are they called like deja vu or something?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I have those in a very weird way where I do have them where it's like, yes, that with your typical definition of like, oh, a glimpse of the future, and then you find yourself in it. And you're like, oh, I've lived this or I've seen this or something. But also I that happens to me when I'm sitting down meditating with my eyes closed. It'll come to me that way, but it'll be from like in a spiritual experience, like more insight and more depth into that experience. Um, so that's one way also that it can come and serving, a specific purpose. I think same as you, I do believe there is always a purpose, and I do always believe that it is related to your soul purpose, like your soul journey, like trying to bring you back and closer into yourself at soul level.
Hmm. So, can you ground us and tell us an experience that you've had, and then how later you realized how it fit into how that 3D or how that experience fits into your 3D life?
Yeah, so I'll go really deep. But what comes to mind is I think I shared I did a lot of hypnotherapy. Was one of the ways that I healed a lot. Once my first awakening happened and when I started to like become aware of my patterns and stuff. One of my hypnotherapy sessions was very intense. I think it was 7 or 8 hours long. Um,
Well,
yeah, it was a whole day. But that was the most healing one, because we were able to go so deep. One of the things that happened that session was that I was able to go back and clarity still, it has been about 3 years. Clarity still about that, I think is still evolving, but I have the big picture now. One of the things I was able to see is myself as a child, and I was on a farm, and I'm gonna say it this way, it might be controversial, but I was a slave,
Okay.
um, and my mother was there, my current mother in this lifetime. She was just a representation of my mother, in
Right.
that lifetime too, and there was a man, and he was the slave owner, and funny enough, well, funny, not funny, but it's actually who my grandfather was, the representation is who my grandfather was in this lifetime, who was actually a farm owner. There was a little hut. This gets explicit. I'm gonna skip some parts. There was a little hut. I was being abused. Um, and then I came out of that hut and onto the farm. And that's the first time that I knew that I was a slave. Because I could do nothing about what just happened in the hut. And then when I came out of the hut, instead of going to like my mother so she could take care of me, she saw me, I saw her, but I couldn't run to her to hug me, to touch me, to take care of me, to love
Wow.
me. And we were both I came out and onto the farm and just had to keep working. That was what I had to do. Um, and that grounding that to 3D into this experience, being held by the chains that I believed in this lifetime that I was held to. So being held, being bound, one, to my marriage was the biggest awakening of that. Being bound to that because I felt like being married to a white man and living, the middle class white picket life was what was gonna help me break those chains, but even living that, I was still chained. So what I understood was that it wasn't that man in that hut, that farm owner who was in charge of my freedom. My freedom was within me the whole time. It was in my power as that little girl and as this woman in this lifetime to take control back. So that I hope that kind of grounds it is that experience in hypnotherapy really helped me understand what it was that I needed to break out of, what it was that I was giving my power to in essence.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that's a beautiful example. Um, and I'm going to say that in general, my belief about awakening, living a spiritual life, whatever you want to call it, enlightenment. I hate all the terms now, but we have to use them. Um, it's about liberation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
about liberation. It's about liberating ourselves. And
yes,
that's what I truly think like Jesus came to do. He didn't, I don't, and I've said this before on the show, he didn't come to, oh, worship me or I'm God. He said we were all gods.
yeah,
And he came to, to liberate ourselves, not to put us in some type of slavery to God, but
yes,
to liberate us.
yeah,
And that's the whole, in this world, we get conformed to the world, conformed to the patterns of our family that we grew up with, the patterns of society. And awakening is this liberation. It's
yeah.
looking at our patterns and liberating ourselves from our patterns that we've inherited and maybe have inherited over multiple lifetimes if you believe in multiple lifetime type stuff.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in multiple lifetime type stuff. I genuinely believe that, for example, that a lot of what I've healed in this lifetime has healed, little Luisa's soul in those other lifetimes. I believe that a lot of the energetic patterns that we carry are from those lifetimes, which is why I personally believe that the work that I do and the breaking of my own patterns is impactful. It's so impactful because it's not just this life. I am healing generations and things that I know I have not seen, but I do feel very strongly um that are there, that they happened. How do we validate a real spiritual experience versus an ego-driven hallucination or wish fulfillment?
Mm. Well, I don't know if I've ever had an ego driven hallucination. I'm not exactly sure what that is. You want to clarify that? Or
Driven
have you had
hallucination.
one?
I've not had one, but what I would imagine it is, there are people, I know someone, basically they believe they're going to be a millionaire. So they not that they have envisioned themselves because I think that holds a little bit more power, but they in their 4D thinking brain and their mental space, they believe that they're going to be a millionaire. To me, that's an ego-driven hallucination. The fact that you at a mental level, not beyond, but at a mental level have created this idea of what you're going to be. And all of the reasons behind it are egotistical. So, because I want to drive a nice car, because I want people to know that I have money, because I want to own, a high rise in downtown Austin. those things to me are driven, excuse me, hallucinations. And that belief stems from somewhere for them that I would call a hallucination, because unless you're sitting there doing visualizations, then to me, I call that a hallucination. So that's what I would call an ego
Well,
driven.
okay. Well, I don't think that's a spiritual experience. So,
Fair. That's true. I agree. I would agree with that.
yeah.
I would totally agree with that.
So,
So how do you validate that? Those people who like genuinely believe, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire. And the other side of that, people who have like hypnotherapy and are like, oh, I'm meant to be the shaman. I'm here to be a medicine woman in this lifetime. I saw this in my hypnotherapy session. How do you differentiate those two?
you have to be careful with the whole shaman thing. I guess, first off, all my spiritual experiences have not been around me becoming something in this world. And they've been very otherworldly, like
Yeah.
things that don't ever happen. You know, they start and stop. My longest one was 30, 40 days, but my shortest one was like 3 minutes. Um, and they have all come randomly. And well, I have one that lasted. That's right. When all my emotions got taken away, which I think I talked about
Yeah.
on the last show, that lasted all summer long, which was really freaky. But I mean, I didn't get up and go, I don't want to have any emotions for the next 3 months. Or when I had my Kundalini experience and I was sitting in the coffee shop, my hands started to tremble, and then I saw firebolts coming out of everybody's eyes. Uh, I didn't get up that day and go, "Oh, I'm going to have this spiritual experience in the coffee shop," right? um, so now, can a spiritual experience lead you to closer to what you're supposed to be doing on this planet? I definitely believe that's true.
Hmm.
Okay. I think you got to be really careful if you're having visions about being, not that you can't, okay? I'm just saying careful about visions about being a shaman or something like that. If you're having visions about being something that's very worldly for worldly purposes, like your friend and, being a millionaire or whatever, I definitely don't, I would not call that a spiritual experience.
Yeah. I feel, to add to what you're saying, that spiritual experiences are one, you have no, I don't want to say you have no control, but in essence, you have no say as to when or how they happen.
That's right.
And two, I feel like, and I'm going to use these words again, but it's more about unbecoming something. And ultimately, that'll shape you into what you become in this lifetime. But it's never like, oh yeah, you're here to be a shaman. Like, it's never that. It's maybe like, okay, you get this feeling or this knowing after that experience, I'm here to help people. And then with time and 3D experiences, it's like, okay, I'm here to help people with medicine and so forth. You know what I mean? Like every experience or spiritual experience or 3D experience kind of walks you more toward that. But if you are, unlike the way you said it, I'm just gonna flat out say, if you're hearing voices that are telling you I'm here to be the god in a cult or something, it's a problem. Okay. That shit does not work like that. It is not, we're not
Right.
here to be cult leaders. Okay. We're not here to create followings of people who do exactly what and how we say. We're not here to be anything specifically. And I'm gonna say that very cautiously. We are here to have an experience. Our souls chose paths. We all have free will. I guess it's the simplest and cleanest way that I can say it.
Uh, and I would say that when I had my Kundalini experience, it wasn't about me becoming anything, but I really had two realizations. And then one thing I think I figured out later. My first realization was during my Kundalini experience, I was madly in love with every single person that I met. Okay. And so you could feel the overwhelming love, pure love of consciousness. Um, what was the second thing? Oh, everything was perfect. Everything that was happening all around me, even things that were ugly, looked like they were perfect. Perfect in the sense that they were supposed to be happening.
Oh
So
yeah.
even, I remember uh, when I was at that cafe and I was having that Kundalini experience, and this, I think it was a waiter or waitress, dropped like a plate full of dishes. They went crashing, and you could hear it reverberate all around this little cafe, but it seemed like it was perfect.
Yeah.
So I learned those two things, that basically everything that's happening right now, even though it doesn't look perfect, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And that there's overwhelming love just right here, right now, that we don't see. And then the third reason, and this is a belief that I have, I don't know whether it's true or not, but that Kundalini experience was very powerful. And I think it's, and obviously I've written a book, writing another book. I'm all doing spiritual podcasts. Just having that experience like anchored me in that this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And that it kind of keeps you going. You're like, you look back and you go, I had that experience. That was a little push, a little, to keep going, to do what you were already doing,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
So, and kind of ground that whole thought process.
I
So,
love that. That's beautiful and important to say after, I just shared that there's no one thing that you're supposed to be doing. That is that. I feel like that is the guidance, right? Like those are the moments and the experiences that guide and lead you toward that thing you're supposed to be doing, and you'll feel it.
uh,
Let's see.
I want to say one other quick thing. And because I've thrown this word Kundalini out,
Oh, yes.
and I don't know that I mean, if you look it up, if you want to understand more about it, but a lot of people do Kundalini yoga, and a lot of people in the spiritual world do certain things to try and have a Kundalini experience. I would tell people that a Kundalini experience can be overwhelmingly powerful, and that all sounds good and great. And oh, I want to have one. I don't think that anybody, unless you were like a master Sufi or a master guru, ought to have any type of goal of having a Kundalini experience.
Mhm.
I think that they can, and at the best level, they can be very eye opening. The worst level, they can almost be dangerous.
Yeah.
So that's just a warning, because I've heard of people talk about, oh, I'm going to do Kundalini yoga. I'm going to have a Kundalini experience. And I'm like, I don't think you know what you're asking for.
It,
If you're waking up, questioning everything, and trying to reconnect with who you truly are, I wrote this book for you. It's a guide to remembering your divine nature, healing old conditioning, and stepping into inner sovereignty. If that resonates, check out the link below, www.atobook.com.
is it? I've heard of ayahuasca. People see visions and they see like themselves like very clearly.
Yeah.
Um, is it like that?
I've never had an ayahuasca experience. I've read quite a bit about them. Um, so I don't know, but I don't believe so.
Okay.
It's not like an out of body dreaming. Kundalini is just like you are where you are, but you can feel the energy surge through you. I mean,
Mm,
surge, in my case, for 40 days. And it's like somebody plugged you into a light socket, and it's very overwhelming. And whew, it basically feels like your nerve endings are getting burnt off, not physically, but energetically, it feels like that. Like you're getting completely electrically rewired.
that sounds so intense.
With so intense. So anyway, that was not to explain all about Kundalini, but to warn people it's not something to mess with.
Thank you. That's important. I'm glad you said that. Now we're moving on to the how. We already kind of talked about that, but kind of this other part of that part of the how is, must you be in a state of surrender to receive a spiritual experience? Are you already spiritual? Are you already walking the spiritual path? Are you already meditating? Are you already doing yoga, praying, or whatever sort of spiritual, practices you take part in? In order to have a spiritual experience, must you already be practicing those things for one to come along for you?
What do you think?
I think not. I don't think. I know not. just because that was my experience. And even these days, I think I shared with you recently, when my first awakening happened, I was very diligent in like my routines. I think it was meditate, pray, stretch, journal, all of these things that I did in the morning before I got out of bed and at night before I went to bed. It was a very and I did that for a while, for about a year and a half. But even after those sort of things dropped off and I stopped practicing my spiritual practices on such a regular, consistent basis. I've obviously had two more awakenings since then, two more spiritual awakenings, big picture, and a lot of little spiritual awakening experiences, whether it has been through hypnotherapy or whether it has been through just, my own practicing with some of my own gifts. They continue to happen even if I'm not regularly doing my spiritual practices like I used to.
Yeah. So I would say, read me the question one more time, please.
So the aspect of it, must you be in a state of surrender already in order to receive and have a physical, a spiritual experience?
I think that because we don't know the big picture, at any point in time, anybody could have a spiritual experience. Okay. I would say that the majority, besides an initial spiritual experience, what's in my truth and my history. I'm prepared not for a spiritual experience, but was just trying to awaken myself for a long period of
Mm,
time. So I've been prepping myself, not necessarily with meditation or doing anything special. I mean, I did a lot of spiritual reading and a lot of reading on the mystics and, and things I was starting to become aware that some of the belief systems I had weren't true, right? And they were starting then. A little belief system here would kind of open up and drop away, and this fake belief system would open up and drop away. So in a way, I was preparing, but it wasn't with any spiritual or religious type of practices.
okay.
It was just looking for a deeper meaning.
Okay.
Um, and you get to that, I don't, a point beyond, this worldly con- conformity that we do. So I think that surrendering, if you want to use that word, or starting the journey and being committed to it, if you really are, then I think that your spiritual experiences will pop up as they need to help deepen your walk and to invite you to a deeper walk and to confirm the things that uh you're already trying to get maybe lodged, or maybe the bad things unlodged, the bad patterns unlodged, but the good patterns lodged to confirm that you're on some path that's right.
I agree. And here's something I would add to that that has been sort of in my mind for a long time. I've never said it out loud, but I believe that a lot of us on this earth at this time, and I'm going to say a lot, the majority of us, we are here to have some sort of understanding and knowing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So I do believe that even if you are not in a full state of surrender, because a lot of us here right now are meant to have that understanding that we are something greater than this 3D self. I do believe that if you are doing anything, even if it's just seeking depth, even if that's as far as you have conceptualized it, that we are going to be receiving in one capacity or another some sort of spiritual experiences. What you call it and how you see it, I think it's going to be different for all of us.
Sure.
But there is a collective awareness that I believe we're meant to have that requires us all to understand that we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah. I would probably disagree that there's a large amount of people having this,
Yeah.
but I think that the number is increasing. I would probably, if I was just putting a number on it, I'd say less than 10% of the gross population of the world, probably less than that, but it is obviously picking up. I mean, you can see that, and the internet and YouTube has helped. Just a little while ago, about having other lives or past lives, as people call them. Here's my concept on that. And my concept is, if we are spirits, we're an individuation of consciousness, and we're in bodies right now, and we know that these bodies are going to die, right? And if you, in most religions, I'm not going to say all religions, but it's Western Christianity for sure, we believe that we're eternal, okay? Eternal means forever, right? So, you know, if you believe that you're eternal, don't believe that we're just gonna like pop up into heaven and sit there and worship God all the time. Okay. There's got to be a lot of other things going on. And so if you think about that and think, I'm eternal, what am I, if I really believe I'm eternal, which I do believe we're eternal, because I believe that consciousness is out there and we're an individual drop, and that drop currently is in this body, or at least part of the drop, maybe, because I think your soul might be outside the body. And I think your soul is your container of all your experiences. Okay. Um, that there could be a lot of other things going on out there besides
I agree.
just us dying and going to heaven and worshiping God the whole time. Because I even think, if you think about God, something that if consciousness or God can create everything, is the basic building blocks of the whole universe and beyond, which we don't even know, maybe multi-universes, all type of stuff going on out there. I don't think a God is going to want us to die, come back, and sit around and worship him or her. That just seems
Right.
crazy to me.
It sounds crazy. Like, what is the point in that, right? Because you
Right.
think about monks, which I had a yearning to be, I there is a big part of me that wishes I could just sit and meditate, for, like, all day. That would be great. Um, but I think about that when I think about a monk, for example. If we were all monks, what would get done in this 3D world? What would we do? What would happen? Would technology advance? Would we learn about all these different types of, I don't know, of anything, like all the different paint colors that we've created, all the different, types of music we've created, all the different, if we all sat around and just meditated, which sounds lovely, but how much of different experiences would we actually be having? So the next one is, why do some people have fireworks while others experience a slow, quiet simmer in their spiritual experiences?
I think almost everybody has a slow, quiet simmer experience, and occasionally you have fireworks.
I I like to think that we probably have both. I mean, when I think about my big picture, my spiritual awakening, like the first time when I saw like angel numbers and I saw my hair take shapes and numbers consistently, like that was fireworks. I was like,
That
what
was,
is happening? Like, duh,
yep,
duh, duh." And even though it didn't happen in just one day, right? Like it happened over a few months, like this realization, it was fireworks. It felt like fire. It was so big. We've talked about before, when you first started the spiritual journey, like for me, when all my gifts came in and I could like see things and I could like get answers and stuff like that. I thought I was all knowing. I was like, oh my God, look at me. And like, I'm better and I know everything. And like, oh my God. And I'm going to have such an easy time navigating through this life with all these gifts. That felt like fireworks. Of course, then the slow, quiet simmer is, the humbling part. I feel like a lot of us probably experience both. I believe that to be an important part of the experience is that, oh my God, I'm all knowing. And then, oh my God, that doesn't actually like I'm not all knowing. That's actually not true. I am just at the base of a whole new world and understanding of seeing life and who I am and what I am and why I'm here that I haven't even like scratched the surface on.
mm,
It's kind of like my daughter started ballet again recently. She used to do ballet when she was a toddler, and we went to this one ballet studio, and the lady's like, it's not that she doesn't have it, but she needs a little bit more experience because these kids have been doing it for a long time.
right.
And then at the next ballet studio, she fits right in because she's at that level where it's like, okay, she has some experience, but she really needs to kind of work on building that foundation again.
Sure.
And I was sitting next to someone, and I hate the words they used. Hate. I am using the word hate. The words that they used, they were like, oh, she needs to be humbled. And I don't like the term that they used, but my understanding of what they were trying to convey is, she really needs to understand that she needs to rebuild a foundation. And that's how I see it, is you then have to rebuild a foundation. And I think those fireworks give you that, oh my God, I'm going to
Right.
start ballet again. This is so exciting. I'm going to go back into something I know. And the slow, quiet simmer is the, oh, but I have to rebuild a foundation because I don't actually remember all of the things that it takes to create a foundation. That's kind of, if that can kind of ground it a little.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would agree with that. I think I always say that the spiritual path is a spiritual path of subtraction. It's subtracting the false self off, the false patterns, the false things that you've agreed to in this world. Um, and then I think about it as getting back to the pure self, but you do have to build a foundation.
Yes.
You have to rebuild a foundation, not necessarily on belief systems, but more around loving yourself and how to love others and those type of things. And
Yeah.
actually, when you were talking about pedestal earlier, I had to laugh a little bit because in my new book, uh, in one of the chapters, I talk about, I'm talking about just some of the different phases you go through in your spiritual development. And one of it, I talk about being on a pedestal because when you first kind of get awakened, you're like, oh, damn. And you look around and you look at everybody and you go, that's so stupid. And I can't believe that these people are like this. And then later on, you realize how ego driven that is.
Yes.
And then you would never say that anymore because you look at those people and go, that's who I once was.
Yeah.
And those experiences got me to where I am. And and everybody is where they are.
Yeah. And where you are is, people say a lot is you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I get so annoyed by that. But that is the truth, is like this is your journey. This is the path. This is what you're supposed to be walking, whether it is in the light, whether it is not in the light, or it is where you're supposed to be. It is part of the journey that you're supposed to experience.
That's right. Part of the journey you're supposed to experience. And when you were talking about earlier, how more people are becoming awakened, and as everybody gains just a little bit more of awakenedness, per se, awakenedness, is that a word? That sends a little ripple out through the pool, right? And that little ripple affects us all. And
Yeah.
so the more of us that are dropping little ripples in the pool, we affect each other. Just like I told you that I watched some of your podcast, your personal podcast that's in Spanish, so I don't know what it's called. Uh, uh, but so I'm reading the CC underneath that read the words in English, and I'm like, I never really thought about this particular way, and that really gave me just a new little perspective on something. And that's what we're always doing for ourselves, for each other. Okay, whether we're doing that in a positive way, building false beliefs, or whether we're doing it in a more pure way, building truer beliefs or tearing down old patterns per se.
Yeah. And that to me speaks to, the power of each of one individually, the things that we do. I've thought about this a lot because I've been podcasting for 3 years now. And you'd think I'd have this like gazillion people following, right? Because I've been doing this consistently for 3 years. But besides my start stop with different podcasts, then the question becomes, well, why are you still doing it if you're not a gazillionaire and if you don't have 100 million people following you? Well, that is why, is because I understand my power. I understand that little one shift that you made because you watched, that affected your life. But if 10 people watched that, that affected your life. So then my next episode, if only 10 people watch that and that affects their lives and changes their perspective just slightly, like that's 10 more people. And I think we live in this world where everything is so big because of the internet and everybody wants to go viral and we want a million views on everything, that we forget that change starts with one person. So I podcast not because my intention is to get 1 million views, but because I understand that one life or those 10 lives that I impact, that has a ripple effect. You're going to have this conversation with somebody else. They're going to have that conversation with somebody else. And the little small changes in perspectives and in actions, those are what change us. And so that's when, our power, our individual power becomes so important. It affects the collective energy, not just because that's what I'm speaking out into the world. So if you talk about manifesting, etc., but also because it's impacting you, you impact another life, and another one, and another one with that one piece of knowledge, change of perspective, etc.
The only thing I would add is you were kind of talking about refinement, these little pieces of refinement. And I believe that that's what we're called to do here in this world, is to become masters of our own spirits, because we've got these great big powerful spirits inside of us. But if we're just, using them without direction, without mastery, then we're just creating chaos in ourselves, creating chaos in the world. So uh, this whole piece of mastery is low level of refinements: coarse sandpaper, medium sandpaper, fine sandpaper, extra fine sandpaper, super, super extra fine sandpaper,
Yes.
buffing. Okay. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. I love that. I love the way you shared that, because I think it's hard to understand that, which in a lot of ways, especially in the 3D, a lot of us want to start something and we want to be good at it and we want to be not good at it. We want to be the best at it next week. We want to publish an episode today and we want 100 views in the first hour. And if you lose sight of that, you lose sight of the experience, is my personal opinion, because you lose sight, everything in between, all of that refinement, you grow a lot in that
No
process.
question. No question.
Yeah. And this brings me to our last question, which I think we've already talked about, but how do we integrate a massive peak experience into a Monday morning reality?
Very carefully.
Yeah. Intentionally.
Intention.
And I would say by slowing down.
Yep. And I was going to say, don't go run out and tell everybody. Hold it in your soul. Hold it in your soul. And I love the word ruminate, and it comes from cows chewing their cud, where they chew over and over and over again. That's what rumination means. And that's where that word came from. You have an experience. I mean, consider yourself blessed, and then don't go out and tell the world. I mean, my Kundalini experience that I've been talking about today, I could look it up because I wrote down the date, but it's well over 10 years ago. I didn't tell anybody when it was happening, except for one. Well, I told my wife, and then I told a therapist friend of mine, because I needed some help. I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So it was just too powerful. But anyway, ruminate with it in your soul for a long time, days, months, years.
Yeah.
And then it will come out as a natural expression in your actions and your words without
Yeah.
saying it to anybody. So you look at it like you would a really nice gift. Like if, let's just say, somebody gave you this beautiful gemstone. Okay. So your spiritual experience is like getting this gift that's just a beautiful gift. And so you don't just rip it open, because it comes wrapped beautifully. So you slowly unwrap it. You open it up and you look at it. You go, whoa, this is beautiful. And then you're thankful for it, right? And then you don't just go run around the neighborhood showing it to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you treasure it. Maybe you get up in the morning, you look at it every morning, you look at it every night before you go to bed, that type of thing. And then you just appreciate the gift, because that's what a spiritual experience is. It's a gift.
It is. It is a gift. It's a beautiful gift. That if you can remember, even through the painful aspects of it, because it requires growth and change and different actions, if you can remember that it is a gift, you end up getting more out of it than the little specks of what looks like hardship. And definitely feels like hardship, but you do get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is all. This has been a great episode. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to us at the email address in the show notes. It's Bill's email address, and we'll be happy to address any questions you have and talk about any topics that you may like to discuss.
That's where you can put comments out there. We answer all our comments, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do. So
thank y'all. Appreciate it so
thank you.
much.
And until next time.
Until next time.